Single dad failed the interview and walked away, then the billionaire CEO ran after him. At 4:12 a.m. the city was still pretending to be asleep. Streetlights hummed softly. A delivery truck rattled past the corner bakery. Somewhere above the rooftops, a train horn sounded, low and tired. Ethan Moore tightened his grip on the handle of the floor buffer and guided it carefully along the polished concrete hallway of Harrington Square, a mixed-use corporate complex that housed law firms, investment groups, and tech startups that printed slogans about innovation on glass walls. At this hour, the slogans were just words. Ethan had learned how to move quietly through other people's success. He knew which doors creaked, which elevators stalled for half a second before opening, which security guards wanted conversation and which preferred silence. Tonight he preferred silence too. The buffer hummed steadily as he worked around a row of potted plants near the west atrium. He paused only once, bending slightly to pick up a paper coffee cup someone had missed tossing into the bin. The cup was still warm. Someone stayed late, he thought. He always noticed things like that. Ethan was 38 years old. He wore a navy janitorial uniform that had been washed so many times the fabric had softened like an old t-shirt. His name was stitched in white above the chest pocket, though most people never looked long enough to read it. He worked nights because nights paid $1 more per hour. He worked nights because nights meant he could be home when his daughter woke up. At 6:30 a.m., when the buffer was cleaned, the supplies restocked, and the floors shining for people who would never think about who cleaned them, Ethan clocked out. He caught the 6:58 bus home. The bus smelled faintly of disinfectant and yesterday's rain. Ethan sat in the third row, backpack between his feet, scrolling through his phone to check the time. A notification blinked at the top of the screen. School nurse, missed call yesterday. His chest tightened. He tapped the number and waited, staring out the fogged window as the bus lurched forward. "Good morning, Pinecrest Elementary," a woman answered. "Hi, this is Ethan Moore. I'm calling about my daughter Lily." "Oh, Mr. Moore," she said gently. "Yes." Lily had another episode yesterday. Nothing severe, but she complained of dizziness during recess. Ethan closed his eyes. "I'll bring her medication up to date today," he said. "I'm sorry." "I thought, you're doing fine," the nurse said quickly. "She's a tough little thing. Just make sure she rests." "Tough," Ethan repeated quietly. "Yeah, she is." He thanked her and ended the call. The bus dropped him off 3 blocks from the apartment he shared with Lily. The building leaned slightly to one side as if tired of standing. The stairwell light flickered when he climbed to the second floor. Inside, the apartment smelled like toast. Lily sat at the small kitchen table in her oversized hoodie, feet swinging above the floor as she colored something with intense concentration. "Morning night shift man," she said without looking up. Ethan smiled despite himself. "Morning early bird," he replied, setting his backpack down. "What are you drawing?" "A dragon," she said. "But a nice one. He guards libraries. Very responsible dragon." She grinned, then glanced at his uniform. "You didn't sleep yet." "I will," he said. "After breakfast." She studied his face in the way only children could, too perceptive, too honest. "You look tired," she said. He poured cereal into a bowl. "That's just my face." She snorted. Moments like this were the reason he kept going. Not hope. Not ambition. Routine. After Lily left for school, Ethan lay down on the couch instead of the bed. He set an alarm for noon. He had learned that if he slept too deeply, his thoughts got heavier. At 11:47 a.m., his phone buzzed. He reached for it groggily, expecting another school call. Instead, the subject line froze him fully awake. Harrington Square, Administrative Services interview request. He sat up slowly. Read it once. Then again. The email was brief. Professional. Polite. They wanted to meet him Thursday morning at 10:30 a.m. regarding his application for Facilities Coordination Assistant. Day shift. Desk work. Office hours. Health coverage. Ethan stared at the screen until the letters blurred. He had applied 3 weeks ago, late one night during his break, after spotting the posting taped crookedly to the staff bulletin board. He hadn't told anyone. Not Lily. Not his sister. Not even himself, really. He had almost laughed when he clicked submit. That evening, while Lily did homework at the table, Ethan sat across from her with a borrowed laptop, rewriting his resume. "Dad," Lily said without looking up, "what does coordination mean?" "It means making sure things don't fall apart," he said. "Oh?" She nodded thoughtfully. "Like you." He paused. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "You make stuff work. Even when it's messy." Ethan looked away, pretending to reread a sentence that suddenly didn't make sense. On Thursday morning, he borrowed a button-down shirt from his sister's husband. It fit well enough if he didn't move his shoulders too much. He dropped Lily off early and rode the bus downtown in silence, watching the city wake up. Harrington Square looked different in daylight. Glass gleamed. People moved with purpose. Coffee cups, heels, lanyards. Ethan stepped inside and felt the familiar sensation of shrinking. He signed in at reception. Sat when told. Waited. At exactly 10:31, a woman in a gray blazer appeared. Ethan Moore. That's me. She led him upstairs. The interview room was bright and minimalist. 2 men and a woman sat behind a table with tablets open in front of them. Introductions were made. Questions were asked. Ethan answered honestly. He spoke about scheduling vendors, tracking maintenance requests, communicating between departments. The things he already did quietly every night. For a while it felt fine. Then one of the men leaned back. So, he said casually, tell us about your educational background. Ethan inhaled. I didn't attend college, he said. I entered the workforce straight out of high school. The woman's pen paused. And currently, the man continued, your role is? I work overnight custodial services. Here. 4 Harrington Square. Something shifted. It wasn't said out loud, but it was felt. The questions became shorter. The smiles tighter. Well, the woman said at last, folding her hands, we appreciate your interest. Ethan nodded. He understood. He stood, shook hands, thanked them for their time. He walked out without asking for reconsideration, without explaining his life, without apologizing for it. The elevator doors closed. As it descended, he watched his reflection in the metal panel. Same man. Same spine. When the doors opened, he walked straight toward the exit. The city waited outside. And then, Mr. Moore. The voice cut through the lobby. Ethan turned. A woman in a forest green coat was striding toward him, phone still in hand, breath slightly unsteady. Security straightened. People slowed. She stopped in front of him and said his name again, quieter now. Please don't leave yet. Ethan looked at her, confused. And somehow, before she even introduced herself, he understood. This wasn't over. Ethan stood just inside the revolving doors, the city's noise muffled behind thick glass. People flowed around them, suits and heels, rolling briefcases, the low percussion of a weekday morning, but a small pocket of stillness formed where the woman in the forest green coat had stopped him. She caught her breath, straightened, and offered a hand. I'm Naomi Harrington, she said. I should have introduced myself sooner. Ethan took her hand. Her grip was firm, warm. Not ceremonial. Real. I know who you are, he said, then added, because it felt right, Ms. Harrington. She smiled at the correction. Naomi is fine. A security guard hovered a few steps away, pretending not to listen. Naomi glanced toward him, then back at Ethan. I watched your interview, she said. Ethan's shoulders tightened. All of it. All of it, Naomi said. Including the part where you were asked about college and the part where you were thanked for your time. He nodded once. He didn't ask how. He didn't ask why. She gestured toward a quieter corner near a bank of elevators. May we talk for a minute? He hesitated. He'd already crossed the threshold in his mind, out, not in. Leaving had felt clean. Final. There was dignity in finality. But there was something in her voice that wasn't curiosity or pity. It was urgency, controlled but unmistakable. Okay, he said. They stepped aside. Naomi leaned against the railing overlooking the lower level, folded her arms, and regarded him with a frankness that made him shift his weight. I owe you an explanation, she said. And you don't owe me anything in return. If you decide to leave after this, I'll understand. Ethan waited. 2 months ago, Naomi continued, I hosted a regional meeting here. Vendors, partners, a few stubborn investors who don't like virtual calls. One of them, Daniel Ruiz, arrived early. He's in his 70s. Brilliant mind. Fragile body. Ethan's brow furrowed. The name tugged at his memory. He got turned around, Naomi said. Went to the wrong floor. Had a dizzy spell by the north stairwell. Security was tied up with a delivery issue. I was in a meeting. She paused. You found him. Ethan swallowed. The memory surfaced easily. The older man gripping the railing, the faint tremor in his hands, the way his voice went thin when he tried to wave it off. I stayed with him, Ethan said slowly. He said it was his blood pressure. I grabbed a chair from the conference room and sat him down. Called for help. You didn't call attention to it, Naomi said. You didn't file a report. You didn't even put your name on it. I didn't think. You thought exactly right, she said. Daniel remembered you. He asked me later if we had more people like you. Ethan exhaled through his nose. I was just doing my job. Naomi shook her head. No. You were doing someone else's job too. The job of paying attention. They stood there for a moment while the building breathed around them. Naomi straightened. When I saw your face on the interview feed this morning, it clicked. Same man. Same posture. Same calm. Ethan's jaw set. So this is about a favor. No, she said firmly. This is about standards. She took out her phone, tapped once, and slipped it back into her coat pocket. I've asked the interview panel to join us. Ethan's stomach dropped. I don't want a scene. There won't be one, Naomi said. Not if everyone tells the truth. He considered leaving anyway. He could still do it. Turn, push the door, disappear back into the city with his dignity intact. But then he thought of Lily. Of the nurse's voice. Of the posting on the bulletin board that had dared him to hope. I'll stay, he said. They didn't wait long. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. 3 people stepped out. The woman with the pen, the man who'd asked about college, and a third, older, sharp-eyed, whom Ethan recognized as the facilities director. They froze when they saw Naomi. Miss Harrington, the older man said quickly. We didn't expect. I know, Naomi said. That's why you're here. She gestured lightly toward Ethan. This is Ethan Moore. You met with him less than 20 minutes ago. The woman nodded, lips pressed thin. Yes. I'd like to understand your decision, Naomi said. Please. Walk me through it. The man who'd asked about college cleared his throat. We evaluate candidates based on a range of factors: experience, education, alignment with the role. And Mr. Moore did not align, Naomi said. In our judgment, he said. Naomi tilted her head. Which factor was lacking? There was a pause. Just long enough to be uncomfortable. He doesn't have a degree, the woman said. And the role is client-facing. Naomi nodded slowly. Is a degree listed as a requirement? No, the facilities director admitted. But it's preferred. Preferred? Naomi repeated. Because. The man hesitated. Because it signals a certain level of professionalism. Ethan felt the familiar pressure in his chest. He kept his hands loose at his sides. Naomi looked at him. May I? He nodded. Mr. Moore, she said to the panel, has 8 years of guest relations experience in a hotel environment. He works overnight in this building. He knows its systems, its rhythms, its people. He responded appropriately to a medical incident involving a key partner. She let that settle. Which part of that suggests a lack of professionalism? The woman with the pen spoke up. We were also concerned about image. Naomi's gaze sharpened. Define that. Well, she said carefully, the front office represents the company. And Mr. Moore does not, Naomi said, her tone even. It's not personal, the facilities director said quickly. It rarely is, Naomi replied. It's structural. She turned to Ethan. Would you tell them what you told me about your schedule? Ethan cleared his throat. I work nights so I can be home when my daughter wakes up. She has a medical condition. I needed flexibility. The woman's expression softened despite herself. Naomi turned back. Did that factor into your assessment? No, the man said. We didn't ask. Exactly, Naomi said. You saw a resume. You filled in the blanks. She stepped closer to the panel, voice calm but carrying. This building runs because of people you don't see. When you confuse visibility with value, you weaken the whole structure. The facilities director swallowed. What are you asking us to do? I'm asking you to reconsider, Naomi said. But not by handing Mr. Moore a badge and a desk. That would be unfair to him and to the team. Ethan looked up, surprised. I'm proposing a trial, Naomi continued. A paid training rotation with administrative services. 8 weeks. Clear benchmarks. Real feedback. The man frowned. We don't have a program like that. You do now, Naomi said. Pilot. Limited scope. Silence. Naomi waited. Finally, the facilities director nodded. If the criteria are objective. They will be, Naomi said. And I'll review the outcomes myself. She turned to Ethan. This is the part where I ask you. Ethan felt the weight of the moment press in. He thought of the bus rides. The night shifts. The careful budgeting. The way Lily pretended not to notice when he skipped meals. I don't want anyone bending rules for me, he said. Naomi met his eyes. I'm straightening them. He let out a slow breath. Then yes. The first week of the rotation was disorienting. Ethan traded his uniform for a temporary badge and a borrowed laptop. His schedule flipped. His sleep faltered. His muscles complained in new ways. On Monday morning, he joined 4 others in a glass-walled conference room. 3 had degrees. 1 had an MBA. All were younger. The facilitator, a woman named Renee, handed out folders. This isn't remedial, she said briskly. It's practical. We'll see how you handle real problems. Ethan listened. Took notes. Asked questions when he didn't understand the acronyms. During a role-play exercise, one trainee fumbled through a complaint about a missed delivery. Ethan waited, then said quietly, "May I try?" Renee nodded. He leaned forward. "Let's slow this down," he said, calm as midnight. "What's the delivery number?" By the end of the exercise, the room had gone still. Renee raised an eyebrow. "Where did you learn that?" "Front desk," Ethan said. "Different building." At lunch, one of the trainees, Mark, sat across from him. "You don't talk much." "I listen," Ethan said. Mark laughed. "Fair." There were moments of friction. A systems login that didn't recognize his credentials. A manager who assumed he was there to fix a spill. A sideways glance when he asked for clarification. Ethan absorbed it all without comment. On Thursday, a real crisis landed. A visiting delegation arrived early. Their conference room wasn't ready. The assigned coordinator was stuck in traffic. Renee looked around. "Suggestions?" Ethan stood. "There's an empty room on 12 with similar AV. I can reroute them, get coffee, and notify security." Renee checked her tablet. "Do it." He did. The delegation never knew anything had gone wrong. That evening, Naomi passed through the corridor where Ethan was packing up. "Good day?" she asked. He considered it. "Honest one." She smiled. "Those are the best kind." At the end of the 8th week, the panel reconvened. Renee spoke first. "Mr. Moore meets the criteria." The facilities director nodded. "Exceeds in some areas." The woman with the pen looked at Ethan. "We'd like to offer you the position." Ethan didn't smile right away. He waited until the words felt real. "Thank you," he said. "I'll do the work." Naomi stood. "He already has." That night, Ethan walked home under a sky just beginning to lighten. He unlocked the apartment quietly. Lily stirred on the couch, blanket bunched around her knees. "Dad?" she mumbled. He sat beside her. "I'm here." She blinked, smiled sleepily. "Did the dragon get the library?" Ethan laughed softly. "He did." She closed her eyes, content. Ethan leaned back, listening to the city breathe. For the first time in a long while, he let himself believe that tomorrow would be different. Not because someone had rescued him, but because someone had finally seen him clearly enough to get out of his way. The first morning Ethan officially worked the desk, he arrived 20 minutes early. Not because anyone had told him to, because habits formed in the dark didn't vanish in daylight. Harrington Square smelled different at 7:10 a.m. There was citrus cleaner instead of industrial soap, fresh coffee instead of burnt grounds. The lobby lights were softer than the glare used overnight, angled to flatter glass and steel. The building wanted to look welcoming now. Ethan adjusted the chair behind the desk, logged into the system and read through the day's schedule. He'd studied it the night before, sitting at the kitchen table while Lily colored dragons with increasingly elaborate backstories. "You're not nervous?" she had said, suspicious. "I'm awake," he'd replied. "That's different." She'd smiled anyway. A woman approached the desk, heels clicking in a rhythm that suggested she was already late. "Conference C?" she asked without slowing. "Yes," Ethan said, matching her pace with his voice. "Take the elevator to the left. They're setting up now." She paused, surprised, then nodded. "Thanks." He watched her go, then turned back to the screen. By 8:30 the lobby was full. IDs. Visitors. Couriers. Questions asked in fragments. Ethan answered them all. He learned quickly which visitors wanted efficiency and which wanted reassurance. He learned the subtle art of being helpful without hovering. He learned how to read impatience before it flared and uncertainty before it froze someone in place. David, one of the senior desk coordinators, stood nearby, arms folded, observing. At 9:12, a man in an expensive coat approached, irritation already etched into his brow. "I've been waiting," the man said. "My contact isn't answering." Ethan glanced at the screen. "Mr. Klein?" "Yes." "Your meeting was rescheduled to 9:30, Ethan said. "I apologize, you should have been notified." Can I offer you coffee while we confirm the room? The man blinked. That would be fine. When he walked away with a cup in hand, David leaned closer. Good catch. Ethan shrugged. Happens. By noon, his feet ached in a way they hadn't in weeks. Standing still was a different kind of endurance. He took his break in the cafeteria, sitting near the windows where sunlight pooled across the tables. He unwrapped his sandwich. Turkey, lettuce, mustard. Mark, the trainee from the rotation, spotted him and waved. So, Mark said, dropping into the chair opposite him. First real day. First visible one, Ethan said. Mark laughed. Fair. They ate in companionable silence for a moment. You know, Mark said, when I first saw you in the rotation I thought you were just quiet. I am quiet. Yeah, but you're also prepared, Mark said. There's a difference. Ethan nodded. He didn't trust himself to say more. That afternoon, Naomi Harrington crossed the lobby with two executives in tow. She slowed just slightly as she passed the desk. Good afternoon, Mr. Moore, she said. Good afternoon, Ethan replied. It was nothing. A greeting. But the way the executives glanced at him, curious now, not dismissive, told him it mattered. The weeks that followed were not a montage of triumph. They were work. There were days when systems crashed and tempers frayed. Days when Ethan had to ask for help. Days when he caught the faint edge of skepticism in someone's tone and chose to ignore it. There were also small wins. A regular visitor who started asking for him by name. A security guard who nodded with genuine respect. An email from facilities thanking him for flagging an issue before it became a problem. At home, things shifted subtly. Lily noticed first. You don't smell like cleaner anymore, she said one evening, wrinkling her nose. I'll take that as a compliment. She studied his new suit jacket hanging by the door. You look different. Different how? Like you belong somewhere, she said matter-of-factly. He knelt in front of her. I always belonged with you. She rolled her eyes. I know that. I mean, outside. He smiled. Yeah, maybe. The nurse called less often. The medication was always up to date now. The grocery list got a little longer. Ethan still counted carefully, but the math didn't scare him the way it used to. One Friday afternoon, Renee stopped by the desk. You're settling in, she said. I hope so. She smiled. You are. I wanted you to know, I've recommended expanding the rotation program. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Really? Really, she said. You weren't an exception. You were evidence. That night, Ethan rode the bus home, watching his reflection slide across dark windows. He looked tired. He always would. But he looked steady. The true test came 3 months later. A storm rolled in hard and fast, knocking out power across several floors. Elevators stalled. Meetings derailed. The lobby filled with confusion. Ethan took a breath and moved. He coordinated with security. Redirected foot traffic. Reassured visitors. Called facilities with clear, concise updates. At one point, a junior executive snapped, Why isn't this fixed yet? Ethan met his gaze evenly. Because safety comes first. We'll have updates in 10 minutes. The executive opened his mouth, then closed it. When power returned, the building exhaled. Later that evening, David clapped Ethan on the shoulder. You handled that. Ethan nodded. It needed handling. 6 months after his interview, the one that almost ended everything, Ethan stood once more in a conference room. This one was warmer. Round table. Coffee already poured. Naomi sat across from him. You've done well, she said. I've done the job, Ethan replied. She smiled. Exactly. She slid a folder across the table. Permanent placement. Salary adjustment. Expanded responsibilities if you want them. He opened the folder slowly. Read carefully. This is generous, he said. It's appropriate, Naomi corrected. And earned. He closed the folder. Thank you. She studied him for a moment. You know, I've been asked why I intervened that day. Ethan said nothing. They expected some grand reason, she continued. Some moral stand. The truth is simpler. She leaned back. You noticed someone who needed help. You did it without thinking you'd be seen. That's the kind of person I want representing this place. Ethan considered that. I didn't change. Naomi nodded. No. The context did. On a quiet Tuesday morning, Ethan arrived at the desk with a small paper bag. What's that? David asked. Donuts, Ethan said. Lily's idea. David grinned. Tell her she's a genius. The morning unfolded smoothly. Familiar faces. Easy rhythms. At 10:17, a man approached the desk hesitantly. "Excuse me," he said. "I have an interview." Ethan smiled. "Name?" "Carlos Rivera." Ethan checked the screen. "You're early. That's good. Would you like a seat while you wait?" Carlos nodded, relief washing over his face. As he walked away, Ethan caught his reflection in the glass, standing straight, present, visible. He thought of the nights he'd cleaned this same floor, unseen and unacknowledged. He didn't resent them. They were part of him. They taught him how to move quietly, how to observe, how to care without credit. Those lessons hadn't held him back. They prepared him. At lunch, Ethan stepped outside and sat on a bench, letting the sun warm his face. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to Lily's contact. "On my way home later. Want pizza?" 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Only if the dragon approves." Ethan laughed softly. He looked back at the building, at the glass, the steel, the reflections of a city always moving. He didn't feel victorious. He felt settled. He stood, brushed off his jacket and walked back inside, no longer passing through someone else's success, but standing comfortably within his own. Not because the world had changed overnight, but because, at last, it had learned to look a little closer, to get out of his way,